Hello, dear friends. Here we are. It's Kardec Radio with a new program, new campaign, new togetherness. It's about what is Spiritism. It's a book by Kardec, 1859. 1859, 2 years after the publishing of the book, the one, the foundation, the only, the Spirit's book. That book defines everything else. And then later, he says to us, we need something short, concise, where we can summarize it all. But Kardec is an educator. He doesn't summarize like bullet points. He talks with us. A good teacher, he talks. And he talks in a very Socratic way because he talks through the people who ask him questions. So last week, when we began this program, we talked to the skeptic, to the critic, a person who comes and says, I don't know if I believe in you. I don't know if what you're saying is true. And it's so good to hear what Kardec would say. It's a learning experience for us. It's an interesting mindset to be studied. How he reasoned the process of cherishing a new way of feeling, a new way of being. It's a new paradigm in our lives. When we embrace the teachings of Spiritism, it's before and after. And if there is no before and after, it's a sign that we're still in the before. We contemplated the after, came back. Contemplated a little bit, came back. Why? Kardec says why? Because we haven't studied enough. Because when we really, 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 really study, everything changes. You want to see how? A girl came to me once and said, I work at a U.S. gun company. Based on what I'm studying, I shouldn't be working there anymore. What do you think? I said, well, you already said the answer. I don't need to say anything. You got to the right conclusion. So should I change jobs? You said it. You got to the right conclusion. It changes our lives. How can we feel the love of God and make money making guns? It doesn't match. This is just an example. What about you in your life? So, wherever you are in this world, our invitation to you is that you get the book. I don't have the book, but you have a phone, you have a tablet, you have a computer. Go through the Amazon or the Kindle and download or buy, right? What is Spiritism? It's very inexpensive, a masterpiece, very thin book, can lead us to new discoveries in life. And here with us, you can study together. You alone, you with your group. Put us on the screen. Let us feel that we are all together because today we have a new group here. Every week, new friends. You see, they are all over the world. Last week, we had Rihanna and Nico from South Africa. We had John DeRosa from the US, Carol and Daisy, who are also in the US. Today, you see, I'll begin with the ladies. Why? The law of equality, Vanessa, but we have to begin with the ladies. Ladies always comes first. Sorry, friends, but it is true. Here we are, our beautiful friend, Sylvia Gibbons. She is in London, in the United Kingdom, and here with us. What a joy for us. How are you, Sylvia?
I am very well, thank you. That's a great pleasure to be with you, talking about Spiritism, my favorite topic in the world, and meeting new people and trying, to do what Emmanuel told us to, that the great service we can do to Spiritism is to disseminate it. So, if we can reach out, bring some word of comfort to someone who's going through a difficult time, or to inspire them to study and to learn a little bit more about life and, where we are and everything. That's all, a blessing for all of us. So
Yes, it's
wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
for those who are coming to London, want to pay a visit. There are several groups, and one of them is the Chico Xavier Spiritist Center, right?
Yes, at the moment we are only working online because, the difficulty we had and people moved away. But there is also the group I help out, St. Francis of Assisi Society, which is very easy to get to. It's in Waterloo, and if you want to come and visit, and we study the Spirit's book, the Gospel, and it's healing, and it's always a nice place to come and talk to people and everything. So whoever in London, please, every Friday, you'll be
Yeah.
terribly welcome.
Yes, and not to forget, here we are at Kardec Radio, and every Wednesday, the Spiritual Light program. It's fantastic. You are there, and it's always a very interesting topic, like the one yesterday about happiness, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, every Wednesday we are there and try to, to be positive. We always try to have a message of hope, because problems people already have. So Spiritism is what helps us, sustains us, and really gives us that support that we need at times of difficulties and problems. And at times we are happy as well. So it's good to have people there as well.
Exactly. And Sylvia, now I'm going to bring a friend of yours from the SSL, Spirit Star of London, Rafael Caldas, another host at Kardec Radio. How are you, Rafael?
Hello, 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 everyone. Good evening. I am great. Thank you, Vanessa, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hi, Sylvia. So nice to be here with you. A pleasure to be here, part of this initiative.
Yes, and Rafael, you and Faye have been doing the program, right?
Yeah, so every 2 weeks on Tuesdays, we have our Time to Talk, where we are pretty much covering different topics around mediumship. It's a chat room, let's say. The idea is to have people joining us and drop comments, questions, anecdotes, stories, and we'll bring them up and try to analyze and help them and guide them from a spiritist perspective around a topic in mediumship. That's it.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. So, Rafael, as we are bringing about this chat room about the basic works of Kardec and how to talk to people, right?
Yeah.
Making people feel like they can talk with us and they can listen to Kardec as well, right?
Absolutely. I think that's probably one of the best formats, because in the end, we cannot, Kardec cannot do the inner transformation for any of us. It is our own journey to take hold of and take the leadership and drive through. So it's all about our own self-reflection. So that's what we are proposing.
That's wonderful. And one more friend to join us from the
Hey,
US, Naur Fonseca. How are you, Naur?
I'm well. Thank you for inviting me, Vanessa. Thank you for introducing me to Rafael and Steve. I'm really happy to meet them here. It's a pleasure talking about Spiritism. I agree with Steve, one of my favorite topics in the world. And I'm happy to talk about this book. Spiritism is like a novel idea to the world up to today. It's more than 150 years, and it's not Spiritism that has to catch up with the world. It's the other way around. The world has to catch up with Spiritism. And in two things, the world has caught up with Spiritism. One is the Spirit's book is the first frequently asked questions book, right, that we know of, like FAQ is the first one. And this book we are talking about today, What is a Spiritist, is like the first Wikipedia, right, with answers, with answers to basic questions about anything, right, or in a more descriptive way. So I, as you know, I'm in tech. I'm a computer scientist, so this FAQs, Wikipedia is all in my domain. So I love making analogies like that.
I love your analogy. And by the way, if you want to see more of Naur, go to Massachusetts, the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Massachusetts. Great friends, great Spiritist Center. He's coordinating the Spiritist meetings in English there. And it's a great opportunity for us to boost it to another level. As he said, it's everything new, but everything is there already. We don't need to reinvent the wheel at all. Just open and use it. and learn from it. It's very easy. But let's talk about easy. Is it that easy? Because last week, when we were learning from Kardec, Kardec was talking to the critic, and the critic was like, I'm not so sure if I'm going to agree with you. I may even write a book against you. And Kardec is not afraid. He says, fine, be my guest, because you're just going to disseminate it for us. Because when people say this is bad, they want to know what bad it is, you know? So, but the second dialogue, it's short. It's with a skeptic. And it's interesting because this person comes and says, I'm neither for nor against Spiritism. But the subject per se has awakened a great deal of interest in me. What do we do with this person? Well, it depends. So I'd like to ask first Sylvia. Sylvia, in this dialogue per se, what caught your attention first and foremost?
You know, I found the interesting thing about this whole chapter, you know, what they call the second dialogue. It's exactly that there are things that we're still confronted with now. We still have this kind of people who come, oh, but you know, what is spiritual? And they have different ideas, and I find very interesting that many things that he talks about here, we still talk to people that come to meetings or want to know, or when you say you are a spiritist, what is that? You know, and they ask questions. I think one of the things, just to emphasize what you were saying, is that, you know, Kardec says this is a new philosophy that there is a lot of people who are against, but it's something new that's creating, opening a path. And of course, like every other thing, philosophy, every other discovery that humanity has made throughout time, the first thing is always they are confronted with not accepting it, because I think, and we see very much this, you know, in the stories of the gospel, the relationship with Jesus and the many conversations throughout the New Testament, that some people, for their own interest, or because they are not really wanting to change the way they are, whatever reason, they do not always accept things in the first place. They cannot be bothered to learn about it. And I think one of the very interesting things here that Kardec, because I always find Kardec so clear, he's so objective, he doesn't use, you know, the whole dialogue, it's, if you take one word, one sentence, you completely break the whole thing down, because everything has a purpose, every word. And it's easy to read, to understand. You know, he, as you said, he's very didactic. And he gives the example that the scientist, I think Fulton, he went to Napoleon, talking about Napoleon I, talking about the steam. And of course, send it to the academy, and they said, oh, no, this is rubbish. Don't worry about it. We don't have time for this. And of course, you know, he came to England, and was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And France completely missed the point. You know, they really lost that. And he's saying, that's what sometimes, you know, the learned men, they will not, because they don't want to be bothered to study about it, or they don't want to. Or I think one of the basic things is that it challenges their knowledge so far. And, you know, people have that pride that they have created a new theory, that they have done something, and anything that will challenge that makes them upset. So they vote against it rather than try to assimilate and learn. And I think this is basic of humanity, you know, for a long time to be. And that's the point that brings me, because the skeptic, he's not, how could I put it? He's not like, oh, you know, I don't want to know about this, because and he's not aggressive in his opinions. He seems to ask, quite thought out questions to Kardec. And it's smooth, his reply. He said, yes, but you're saying this, but have you thought of something else? When he asked, why spiritualism and why spiritism? Why do you have to invent new words? And then Kardec says, well, a spiritualist, a spiritist is a spiritualist, but the spiritist accepts that spirits exist and we can communicate with them. Whereas the spiritualists, they believe that there is something beyond death, but they not particularly accept the idea of spirits and communicating with them. And it starts from there, the explanations. And Kardec takes the time to reply for every single thing in a very clear, intelligent way, that you follow his thoughts and you're learning as you go on. So I find it fascinating, whenever I read the Spirit's book or any of fascinating how clear-minded he was.
Yes, as you said, he says Spiritism touches on all branches of philosophy, metaphysics, psychology, and morality. It's an immense field. So, Rafael, an immense field, but Kardec, as Sylvia is saying, the dialogue goes on and on, but at the very introduction, Kardec very kindly suggests that the easiest way is to read. What else did you catch in this dialogue?
It is, so we're only reading the beginning of the dialogue. The Skeptic goes on the whole chapter, but there's just so many nuances to those few pages. A few things that came to my mind. The first one is the openness. So Kardec's approach to the Skeptic is very open. I think Siva picked up in a very good way that the Skeptic is not being aggressive or anything, and Kardec is equally being open about it. And I think that for me is already a lesson. Then he went on and explains in a very nice way, look, it's vast, it's comprehensive, it touches all aspects of life. I cannot pretend to tell you that I'm going to be able to give you everything. That's why the reading is important.
Yes.
And what is the nuance in that specific item? Kardec is putting the responsibility back on the other one, on you, on us. Kardec is telling you, read. Why is he telling us that? When we are reading, we are forcing us to separate a moment where it's just us and the book. It's just us and our minds. It allows us to reflect. It allows us to absorb. And that is the basis for our own journey, for our own transformation, for our own learning. So there's another lesson here. It might seem something simple. Oh, it's too big, go read. It's not just that. It's because by reading, the reflection, you allow yourself to reflect. And in the end, the ultimate goal from Spiritism is your moral transformation, is your learning, is your look at your habits. All of that will come from your own reflections. Not a matter of me or Kardec or anyone telling us. Unfortunately, the work is harder than that. But it starts with us. The one thing that we hear very, very commonly is that the responsibility is not on people to convince you. Look, I'm not here to convince you, look, go do this and do that. Spiritism is this. It's not converting people. That's not it. What Kardec is saying is, look, and he also says that in a subtle way, because he says, I will answer your questions if they are sincere. So again, it's asking you to start from a point where you are also open. Are you asking to think, or are you asking to prove wrong? I think there's a difference there. And I think That's what he's inviting us to do. Say, look, go in your journey, but be open, because the reflections, that's what we're going to bring the value to you. We'll stop here.
So Raphael said it's to read and to reflect. I love that. It's not only reading. People may say, I love that when people say, it's too much. No. Some people come to our center and say, I've read these books, I've read those books. Okay, but have you read it, studied, reflected, all of those books? So we need to go back and reflect. Thank you, Raphael. Now, let's tell people, when we talk about changing lives, we were talking about studying this book by Kardec and how this family feeling is so important. So I will open two parentheses here for you to bring us the highlight, and then use also about the Family Spiritist Retreat in the US.
Okay, my pleasure. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I think I'd like to share some kind of more personal relationship to the chapter, because I think many of us are put in this position. Like every time someone who is not Spiritist come to us and ask, what do you do Wednesday night? Right? Or Saturday morning, where do you go? Right? And it's, I'll go to church. Or, right? People give all these answers. Why do we do that? Because explaining what is Spiritism takes a lot of time. And we give these excuses, right? And through some inner work, I stopped doing that. No, I'm going to Spiritist Center. And if they want to know more, I will answer more. But, at least I'm honest. And I think the reason is there's so much. And I think today I'm being humbled by this chapter and thinking, well, even Kardec, the source, right, of the codifier who organized everything, he read everything twice at least, right? Even him said, I will not pretend to be able to answer all your questions, right? But I'll do what I can. So I think that kind of takes off that anxiety that we usually feel. People, what is Spiritism? And we have so much to say, I don't know where to start, right? Personally, I usually like to go from a historical, right? I describe the Fox sisters, blah, blah, blah. But here, Kardec gave the ball back to him, like, what's your question? And the first question was about, why do you need a new word? So I think there's a great lesson there, right? So, of course, when Kardec wrote this, it was based on many dialogues he had with real people, because he would make these trips through France to found new centers or to give orientation to new centers and have these lectures, and people would ask questions, right? So after a year of doing this, he goes, I'm going to write a book, because I've been asked the same questions so many times that I can now give a complete answer in the form of a small book. So I love this aspect. And, there are many ways that you can learn Spiritism, right? Reading and reflecting being one of the most effective ones. But in the Family Spirits Retreat, we do it differently, right? It's always through experience, right? We always create some kind of situation. There's a play, something bad happens, and now you're in a situation, you need to, what's the right way of acting here? What should we do now, right? And then once we create that need, right, that situation, we need to think and reflect, okay, based on what we know, can we learn something new to help us with this situation? So the Family Spirits Retreat has been going on here in New England for about 20 years, right? This is the 21st edition. And since like 2 or 3 years ago, we have expanded by natural, like by the spiritual help for sure. And we have had like about 10 different locations that we all meet at the same day with families to study Spiritism in a kind of more dynamic, relaxed format in a park. And for children, for families in general, anyone, any age, right, is welcome to come. And
the website.
Oh, yes, I'll type in the website here
Tell me, because I'm typing in now, and I can't.
Okay. It's familyspiritisretreat.org.
Super easy. Super easy.
And when does that take place?
So this year is going to be in June 23rd. It's a Sunday. It's 23rd or 26th? Let me look at the calendar here.
There's nothing live, nothing on the internet. Go to the park, people.
Yeah, June 23rd. Yes, it's in a park. So it's very nice thing. And if you live in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Florida, Texas, California,
Baltimore,
Virginia, yes, Washington D.C. I think you'll find a location closer to you.
Yeah, wonderful. So another thing that we said before, the book, What is Spiritism? Hold on, I wanted to stop. It doesn't stop. Okay, is the Wikipedia of Spiritism. I'll never forget that. And we are talking about the first step. It seems a mere thing to create a new word, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Kardec, he says that new words are needed for new things. He says in the book. See, if you have the book on your phone, you can highlight, underline, make a comment. He says for new things, new terms are needed if one wants to avoid misunderstanding. So Kardec troubleshoots way before he creates the thing. He's a visionary. He's an educator. He knows people's mind. He's so skillful in knowing human mindset that he goes ahead. But words are so problematic, right, friends? Because it seems to simplify things and to really create clarity. But in an evolving world like ours, how come people find Spiritism the word in the Bible?
Yes, it's funny. It's like we are suffering the opposite problem that Kardec was suffering when he first created Spiritism, right? So he created Spiritism, the word, to designate new ideas that were not included in the other words that already existed. And Sylvia already said that, like in Spiritism, the communication with spirits is fundamental. It's a principle of Spiritism. And many spiritualist philosophies do not believe in the communication of spirits or any spirits. Maybe just angels can communicate or just God, but not any spirit. So it's different. So he needed that. But today, we see other philosophies adopting the term Spiritism to express ideas that are not Spiritists in essence, right? So it's common here in Boston. You go to a Spiritist palm reading or psychic, right? They put the word Spiritism on the advertisement, which is something that you will not find in any Spiritist center, right?
Not at all. Not at all. You're right.
So it's they should create their own word if they want, right? Or use words that are like exist, like esotericism, whatever, right? But not Spiritism.
You're right. And it's interesting you're saying that, because I remember the late Sueli Calda Schubert, when she was visiting us here when we were in Baltimore, at the Spiritist out of Baltimore. Once I mentioned to her, I said, it's so funny because we want to use words here like Kardec used Spiritist doctrine. At his time, he met a set of principles. But when we say it in our day and age, it sounds dogmatic. And we can't use this word, that word, the other word. And she said, Vanessa, you know why this is happening? Because in the past, we were the ones who distorted it. Now we have to come here and fix it.
Yeah.
How do we fix it, Rafael? How do we fix it? If Kardec is saying, we are spiritualists,
Yeah.
But not every spiritualist is a spiritist, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How do we fix it? It comes down to a basic, very basic teachings that is repeated over and over. Example. Through the example, to becoming the life, the live example of Spiritism. We cannot, keep people from using these words, resignifying them, and so on. But if we create enough of a weight to the meaning of it that comes from the specific groups, that comes from how we approach things, that comes from how we treat the situations around us in our lives, people are observing. When they observe, they get curious, and they will ask you, and they will approach you, and then they will understand, from the source, let's say, what is Spiritism? Why are you like that? Why do you approach things in this way? How come you deal with these situations in this way? When they hear that and associate that with Spiritism, we clarify the term and what it means. So I think that's our role, right? If you think about it, I'm going to go back to responsibility. Key word for us. Our responsibility is our own journey. Through our own journey, we will help others. Others will see us. Others will be interested. Others will engage in the conversations. Others will ask. Maybe their questions will become doubts that we will need to reflect upon. We will need to research. We will need to read. So again, being the living example, and that's how we fix and make sure that the term does not get lost in translation, let's say.
I love it. Learning through repetition, teaching through responsibility. As Rafael is saying to us, so interesting. Yesterday, Rafael, in our mediumistic meeting, that's what the Good Spirit said. Paul of Tarsus, he was doing his works slowly because it was a slow pace to go from city to city everywhere, miles and miles away. So in that journey, he had to go slowly but surely, constantly. And that's what you're saying, consistency, right? Year after year, people, where is the Spiritist? It's there. Where are the people? They're there. Oh, I went around the world, visited all the Maldive Islands and everything else. Oh, and the people are still there. And when you go, they're embracing, they are sharing, they are repeating, they are, and you're right, through the repetition and our consistency, responsibility, people little by little, over time, right? Over time. I love that, Sylvia. It's so interesting because he says, you mentioned a little bit about it, but Kardec says when talking to the skeptic that there are people who, due to their argumentative nature, they criticize anything that they themselves have not come up with and does want to put on airs of opposition to it. And those who insist on such petty squabbles prove only one thing, the shallowness of their ideas. Did that catch your eyes too?
Yes, actually did when I read it, because it's so true, so real. Like I said before, this kind of things that we still face today with people talking about Spiritism, and funnily enough, sometimes even people within the Spiritist movement, is not so alien to many people. I think on one point as well that sort of called my attention because of the clarity of Kardec, and then I'll come back. It says, why do because when they question, and Kardec says, well, why, to have those problem in having the new words to specify something that's very specific. And he says, arts and science and industry find new words all the time, create new words all the time as discovery happens, and in one sentence, he completely the whole thing. If it's okay for science, for technology, for arts to find new words, why can't we find in the spiritual thing? Because I think one of the points as well is that Spiritism, there was something Kardec said in something else as well. Nothing is new. Mediumship was not new. The knowledge of the spiritual world was not new, came back. You can go to the beginning of Genesis and you find the knowledge of Spiritism there, which, is the knowledge of the universe. And I think that's why when you read the literature, it starts. I remember someone once in a meeting that I was at, why do you have to talk about the universe? Why do you have to talk about the creation of the universe? With Spiritism, there's nothing to do. And it was so funny. It was interesting because no, it's everything to do, because it's the knowledge of the universe that is bringing in a few questions, because it's an opening of knowledge. And I always find that in Spiritism, the more you study, the more you learn, the less you know, because every time you look at something, then 10 things appear. Then you look at then 10 things and there's 20 things. And I think this also brings us to learn more. And I find this dialogue between Kardec and in several of the, dissenting opinions and in the other items as well, how Kardec is always explaining, you go and look for it and learn, because actually the knowledge is already there. The only thing that Spiritism did was to bring it together in a concise, objective way. And because, we knew about mediumship, is in the Bible. In the whole history, if you think about mediums, the whole oracle, the oracle actually was the medium, wasn't it? The very famous temple of Apollo. But it was all there. And what Kardec does and what Spiritism does, and that I think one of the things that you can imply from what the discussion is going on, is that he's explaining how the things happen, how the process happens. Because I don't know, can we go forward into something else, or just discuss it? Because what he says here further, when he's talking about mediums, he says, he says, why people can abuse, why don't you pay them? And then one of the things said, everything is to do with the connection, with the fluids, with the ability. So he already sort of explains that you can't pretend to be a medium, that is needed, for this communication to happen. There is a necessity to have a connection between the medium and the spirit is communicating. So he unfolds the subject and he goes explaining. And I think this, is very important for us to go back to those little books and really go back, because it's extremely profound and for our own knowledge while I was reading this, I kept thinking, this is in Medium's book. Oh, that's in the Spirit's book. I read it already in Genesis. And it's almost like he put the whole codification and explained, in one little chapter, which I find fascinating. I just adore Kardec. But, and this is important because, I think one thing as well that when I was talking, that, what Spiritism, if people ask, how can you say, we don't need to give a lot of explanation. I think it can be quite objective, like Kardec was. Spiritism explains the laws of the spiritual world and this world and things that are now happening. Because we find, I mean, if you go to the Spirit's book and everything, when he talks about, there in the Spirit's book, things that we are only learning in science now. When he talks about not having vacuum in space, when he talks about the primitive fluid and secondary fluid, I mean, only now we're learning about dark matter, dark energy, and all this kind of things that is already in the Spirit's book 170 years ago. And I think the question of, like he says, new language, it is because the new science is discovering things. And we already have this in the Spirit's book. I find this is really humbling, and you really have to read so carefully the things. And also, I think reminded me one of books of Brother Irmão X, Humberto de Campos, when I don't know if it's in Cartas and Crônicas, I think, he had a friend. A person had a friend, and he was a spiritist, but he never told his friend who he was. He always, he was friends, together, they were really close, but he never told him. I don't know if you remember that. I always find that fascinating, because he never told him what he did. He lied, whatever. And then his friend dies. And he comes to a meeting and said, you never told me. You could have saved me. All the suffering that I'm going through now. And I think this, when Valdo was talking about responsibility, that's the responsibility. Say, I'm a spiritist. I try to learn about the new laws. I try to make a change in my life. It's something that gives me courage. It's something that supports me in my times of need. And I think just saying things like that will inspire people to know more. Says, when I'm really sad, I lost someone, a breakage of a relationship, something difficult that's going on, fears, losing a job and all kind. Spiritism gives me such a confidence, because it helps me, sustains me when I feel very weak. I feel that I have some support. God's with me, and I think that's how you explain Spiritism. The difference that makes in our lives, and how it helps us to overcome so many difficulties. And then, so if you like to read, there is this course, because we had an experience here. I found that was a lot of people saying that in Europe, people only talk about science, and they like science, And we had a book fair that we used to go every Sunday to Brick Lane. It's a marketplace, a medieval market, but it still goes on. And we used to sell Spiritist books. And honestly, in 10 books that we sold 8 was the Gospel according to Spiritism. And it was such a big opening. And I said, no, because it doesn't matter if people in Europe, if they're scientists, they lose their loved ones, they feel fear, they feel losing their jobs, they feel, a member of their family. And that's what you reach people through the heart. And Spiritism is pure heart and joy. You can't help being happy when you're Spiritist, can you?
No, still, yeah. I love when you first said nothing is new in Spiritism, which organizes it concisely and objective. And now you're saying Spiritism is heart and joy. And for us, this is so true. And we are just talking about the very first parts of the conversation with the skeptic. And the skeptic bumps onto the method. How do I get to know? And Kardec says, well, so comprehensive, you need to read. And here we are, read and reflect, as Raphael mentioned. As much as he wanted to summarize, even Wikipedia, right? It's summarized, but you have to read. So we have to read. And I always said, it's the Wikipedia of Spiritism, but we have to read and to feel as you're saying, because this is about us. It's about spirits. We are spirits. So when we are talking about it, we're talking about ourselves. We're talking about, as Kardec said, our origin, our nature, our destiny, the relationship we have with the material world, because I am a spirit. I am not the body that is moving like a puppet here. This body is not me. It's just a puppet, a loving one that we need to care. Take care of body and spirit. And where is that written? In the Gospel according to Spiritism. I love this demystification of, oh, it's a science, only scientists. No, it's about being a person. So as we march towards this final conversation, I know Rafael, Naur, and Silva will be back in another program through this series, and other friends. We have almost like more than 30 people joining us throughout the 6 months as we are covering this book, What Spiritism. It is a book for us to read, to reflect, to be happy. As Sylvia said, Spiritism is joy and heart. So I'm going to go the other way around, from Naur to Sylvia now. Naur, your final comments, the comments you have decided to share to
Mhm.
help all of us in this discovery of Spiritism.
Okay. Um, well, I wanted to share a story. When I went to school here in Boston, I used to walk by in the vicinity of the school, and there was a church, like the first spiritualist church of Boston or Massachusetts. I forget now the exact name. And I found it so funny because it put the word spiritualist right in
Yeah.
the door. So spiritualism was born here in the United States, right? In Hydelsville, the famous phenomenon of the Fox sisters. And so there are churches, there are books, there's a movement. It was called the modern spiritualist movement, right? That spread from United States to Europe, and in particular in France, right, where Allan Kardec and other missionaries with him started to work on it and create the spirits books and everything else. And there were differences, right, between those. And I remember reading another. Well, first, that story is well described in that book by Arthur Conan Doyle, right? The History of Spiritualism, where he described the Fox sisters phenomenon and the history there, and a little bit of how the phenomena is spread to Europe. And I also remember reading somewhere else that one of the differences between spiritualism and spiritism, there was a heated debate, was reincarnation. And it was funny because even the spirits, like through mediumship messages received from the spirits, they would disagree, right? So they're just proving the point that Kardec made very clear up front. Don't trust every spirit, right? Because they can only give you information compatible to the level of understanding that they themselves have. Right? So it's very interesting, the scientific method that he used to compile the answers to the questions. They make more sense. They're more logical, and we're not in disagreement with each other, right?
Yes.
It's a fascinating topic. As I said, we can talk about it forever. So if you are really attracted to spiritism, if you feel that it answers some of your questions and some of your human needs, come to one of our centers. I'm here in Boston, in the city of Malden, actually. So we have our website. I'll put here so you can visit, get our address, and the activities we have. And we welcome every Wednesday from 7 to 8. We have our English group in person, but it's also hybrid. If you cannot come in person, you're welcome to visit us online as well.
Wonderful. Now we're more excited now, right? Knowing also about the Spiritist family retreat coming up in June for people who are in the areas, because there are many areas. The third weekend of June, as far as I know, right? The third
June 23rd, yes.
June 23rd. Many places in the United States. I remember the first ones, I participated in a few. It's
You
fascinating.
need to come back with Virginia now.
I know, right? Oh my God, you are right. You are right. That's an experience. I know her. She's gonna say, "Mom, can we come back every year?" I can almost tell she's gonna say that. But that you're right. We must. It's a must for us.
Yes.
So there you go. Here in the U.S., many things are happening. Naur has been um, advocating for spiritism, and as we're saying, I know it's funny because people don't understand. But how will they understand if we don't talk about it?
Yeah.
Right? If we don't say it, like we go to a shelter, deliver something there. When we go to the homeless, we have our t-shirt and people are like, spiritualist? No, spiritist. Spiritist, spiritualist? No, it's different.
Yes.
We're cousins,
Yes.
but we believe in reincarnation. We know reincarnation exists and more, but spiritist. And then people say, oh, the spiritists are coming.
Interesting.
I will never forget when we had our, in 2006, the first one, but I've been visiting Lilydale, upstate New York, the spiritualist city, where they have the chest that was at the Fox sisters' house.
Uh-huh.
It's right there,
The peddler's box.
the peddler's box. And in 2004, we were there, 2005, we were there, 2006, we had the first Spiritist meeting weekend in the spiritualist city.
Oh, wow.
And we were talking, we had meetings with the board of directors over the years, we made friends with them. And in England, for example, at Bournemouth, and many of the Spiritist friends, they have good friendship with spiritualists as well.
Yeah.
And whether we may not come to 100% consensus, we're coming close, right? We're coming close, very close. Right, Rafael? What would
Yes.
you say?
Yes, very much so. And I think that's in the end, I think there's, of course, there's value in knowing the difference in the distinction, but especially when you come together, the purpose and what we're doing, the intention behind our actions, that's what matters, and that's what should connect us the most, regardless of how we call ourselves, right? And even if you go broader than spiritist, spiritualist, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Muslim, it doesn't matter. So I think that's probably the best thing to summarize. If I may, very very quickly, just to wrap up my thinking about this, what we read today is Kardec, in his absurd intelligence, because he's just such an intelligent guy, give us a lecture, like a master class in reasoning in this book, in a very clear way, as Silvia was telling us. But that, when he talks about creating a new word, I go back to another quote from him, something that he wrote. I can't remember which book now. When he says, look, astrology became astronomy. Alchemy became chemistry. So the new words come as we start to evolve our reasoning, evolve in our ideas. So it's symbolism for new ideas that come to place. So Spiritism is just that. It's another term, but it's the symbolism that comes with that is, I'm going to go back to the word I mentioned in the beginning, the openness of how the new ideas, the new reasoning, the new tests, the new science is built, is created. And I'll leave with, it's our responsibility, right? At the end of the day, nobody can walk on your own shoes. You have to do that yourself.
Yes, Rafael. I love it. I know people run away. You say responsibility, run away. But we know, we say, we're here, we're in, right? I can tell we're here. We love it because it's the way to go. Our moral duty. We have to share this beauty, right, Rafael? Thank you very much. And Sylvia, as Kardec says, Spiritism now has its own nomenclature, just as chemistry has its own. So interesting, this parallel and the respect. The respect. And Kardec has this presence that is so reputable and respectable at the same time for us to feel we're not playing games. We're not playing uh, Ouija board sessions, things like this. No, we're not. We're not entertaining ourselves with the spirits. We are very serious, committed, and walking our path. What would you say, Sylvia?
Well, I mean, that's exactly it, because I find Spiritism is a way of transformation, is a way of getting to know who we really are and what the purpose is here. I remember the first time that I saw the Spirit's book, um, and I look at the contents and I said, oh my God, everything that I ever wanted to know is in this book. And I've been many places to come to that. So there is so much answer on the spiritism, and I think once it gets into your heart, you never leave it. It's something that I don't know, it's just the answers. It fills every single cell of your body. They understand you want to know more, you want to learn more, and you want to do more, you want to serve, you want to have a purpose. And I think that's one of the things that, reading this, because what Kardec says, I can explain to you, but I think you need to go and read for yourself. And I think this is one of the basic teachings of the spirits. Don't believe anything that someone says. Go and do it yourself. Go and read, get your own conclusions. Because, even though we have our own experience, our own way of seeing things, and everyone sees something different. So go yourself and find it. And I think that's what it gives us, an opportunity to really find out who we are and what our purpose in life is and where we're going to go, and prepare ourselves for a better life. And we need to do the work ourselves. I think Rafael or Naur said, you can't walk in somebody's shoes. We all have to walk in our own. And just concluding, there is a quote which I love from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, that he says, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And he was a priest and a philosopher, and he's got immense quotations that very Spiritist. And we find this, and Spiritism allows us to really explore our own being, our own soul, and how we help, once we do it, help others. And it reminds me of the teachings of Jesus: love your neighbor as yourself. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And we can only do that if we get to know ourselves. And going through this conversation here in Kardec and the Skeptic, we see exactly that. I can show you the way, but you need to go and find it your own path. And I think that's what is very rich about this.
You summarized it quite well for us, Sylvia. I want to thank Naur, Rafael, and Sylvia. Sylvia, Rafael, Naur, all of you, and all those who are here. Your questions, your comments are being seen, are being addressed. And next week we'll be back still talking with the Skeptic. He has more questions. And probably we have more questions. Why not? We're not afraid of asking. We're not afraid of answering. We're not afraid about talking about it. And it's all clear under the sunlight. We're not hidden in initiation rooms. No longer. It's for everybody. Right? No more. No more. Right?
No more.
And that's the beauty of it all. So, friends, the joy in the heart, that's Spiritism. I'll never forget that, Sylvia. You guys taught me so much. Rafael, Naura, and Sylvia, I want to thank you. And
Thank you very much.
thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
And I want to say
Actually,
those
just one thing, Vanessa, very, very quickly. I know we come to the end. It's just you said about the relationship with the spiritualist churches and Spiritism. We just down the road here from where I live, just up Kingston, there is a spiritualist church that was actually founded by Arthur Conan Doyle. He
Oh,
was the one
excellent.
who set the stone. And there was this Brazilian lady. She didn't know, anything spiritual when she came, and she went to this church, and she started going there, and they allowed her. The president allowed her to form a spiritist group inside the church, and it's called the Blue Circle. And I mean, now she's actually the president of the church. He retired and she's the president. And we go there, we talk about mediumship. Whenever we have, Florence was here just recently, and he goes there, and they're extremely welcoming, and it's wonderful because you have this connection. And we had as well in Canterbury, and as you said, in Bournemouth as well, we have a very strong connection. And I think it's a way of unity, because they are coming to us because we explain more, Spiritism explain more than what they just have. The points of connection are there, but they feel that there is more to learn, and Spiritism allows it, which is wonderful. It's a beautiful connection, I think.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing this. There's so much to share, right? But this is not over. Our
No.
Sylvia and Rafael will come back another time to continue. For today, we'll take a break to reflect on it, to
All right.
feel it. Thank you
Yes.
so much, friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. We wish you all a wonderful night or day, depending on where and when you're watching this. And stay tuned, because at Kardec Radio, we always have more to nourish our souls.